taking on these responsibilities at a time where your brain is not yet mature to understand what it means to. Many people don't even know exists. It exists because of emotional abuse or neglect. Let's talk about something we don't hear about too often, and that is the parentified child. Assalamu alaikum. If you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a trauma coach. I work with Muslim women to heal from complex trauma and build a beautiful life ahead of them. If you're a Muslim woman who is wanting to do that work, then please go to the link in my description to learn more about my group coaching program and apply. Parentified children, parentification, one of my favorite topics to discuss, but it's something that many people don't even know exists. But after working with so many women who have suffered with childhood trauma, you realize how common this actually is, especially in immigrant communities or cultural communities. What is parentification? Parentification is essentially a situation in which a child is given adult-level responsibilities in their home. So they are given responsibilities, for example, to take care of their younger siblings, to cook or clean, at well beyond the age where this is considered developmentally appropriate. And the consequence of parentification is essentially you are taking on these responsibilities at a time where your brain is not yet mature to understand what it means to take on these responsibilities. And it sometimes happens out of complete necessity. Parents might be so busy, or give the idea of, parents who immigrated from one country to another. They're trying to build the life. It demands a lot of attention for them. They don't have the time or the energy to be able to take care of other things, so they rely on their children to be able to do that. It's not to say that parentification is something that is evil. It happens, and there might be reasons that it happens. In other cases, parentification might exist because of emotional abuse or neglect, meaning parents parentified their child not because it was a necessity, but because they were neglectful. The example of the alcoholic father or drug abusing mother who would be out cold, passed out, and so the children had to learn how to cook for themselves, or they weren't going to eat. You have a 5-year-old who's using the stove, right? They had to learn how to do their laundry, or they wouldn't have clean clothes. That is not a normal thing for a child to experience. Why is parentification so dangerous? I mean, so many people might look at it in the first situation and think, well, it helped them to mature, it helped them to grow up, and they learn skills as a young person or as a child that ends up aiding them in adulthood. And sure, you can consider parentification functional, but at its core, parentification really strips a child's license or ability to just be a kid. And that's what kids should be doing. They should just be able to be a kid. That level of responsibility is not something that a child is supposed to be carrying. It's meant for adults to be carrying, because as adults, we are the ones who understand the consequences of these things. In addition, I find that a lot of children who are parentified grow up into adults who hold a lot of resentment for not being able to be a kid, and who find themselves overwhelmed at adulthood because they realize, I never got a chance to just have a break. It was always being in survival mode and always having to do things. That can be really difficult to separate. How do you understand what you want as an adult, or what's important to you, what your values are, when growing up all you knew was to do what you had to do to survive? In addition, I find something really interesting with parentified children, which is a lot of parentified children grow up not wanting to have children of their own, which was really interesting to think. I work with majority women, so I found that to be really astounding. But on the other hand, parentified children who grew up to be moms often find themselves resentful, or the underlying resentment of, oh my God, I had to do this as a child, I have to do it as an adult, and it can be overwhelming. It's not to say they don't love their children. I find that these women tend to be very loving children, or very loving mothers, very attuned to their children, but so overwhelmed. And as a result, their nervous system is severely dysregulated. They never learned how to regulate it as a child because they were so busy being in survival mode. If you're a parentified child, I want to first just give you permission to validate that experience, because it is one of the most commonly invalidated experiences. It's almost like that's not even a big deal. Like, oh, you had to do that. Okay, cool. That didn't cause any issues. And some people take it in stride and they, are appreciative of what it is that they've experienced, but it's not to say that it doesn't come without consequence. So I validate that experience you that you weren't able to be a child. You had to constantly take on the role of a parent when your mother or your father should have been doing that. And now that stress that you carried as a child, like, imagine a child having to figure out how to make doctor's appointments, how to put a meal together, and how to dress their younger siblings. And when I say child, I'm not talking about like age 17, 18, 16, 15. I mean literal children, right? 9, 10, 8. That's stressful. I mean, I get stressed out when I have to call and make an appointment for myself sometimes. And I'm literally in the medical field. For those who don't know, I practice medicine. I can't imagine having to do that at such a young age. There's also a tremendous amount of shame that can come from parentification when you realize that your childhood was so distinctly different from someone else's. And I want to give you permission to release that shame. You shouldn't carry shame for something that wasn't in your control. You're not a bad kid, right? You weren't a bad kid, and that's why you had to be parentified. You were just trying to make it through. And the last point I will make is that even though you were parentified as a child, that doesn't mean that parentification has to last forever. You have permission to do things that you wanted to do as a kid, even as an adult. Granted that they are halal, right? And not harming to yourself or to other people. A lot of times we get stuck in the seriousness of, well, I lost my childhood and I can't, but there's something really just self-honoring and healing about moving to this point of being an adult and doing the things that you couldn't do, right? Doing the things that you wish you could have done, that sport you wish you could have played and you play at, that game that you wanted to buy and you buy it for yourself, that snack that you wish you could have picked up when you were at the grocery store that your mom always told you, no, we don't have enough, money for, and you get it for yourself. You're allowed to do that as an adult, and there's something very reparative about that process. I hope that this was insightful for you, and if you were a parentified child who is working on healing your trauma as a Muslim woman, then please go to the link in my description to learn more about how the trauma group coaching program, Seeking Wholeness, can help you. And comment below if you're parentified, or if you've even ever heard about parentification. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for watching.